Hello and welcome to People in Legal, the podcast where we explore the human side of law, shining a light on the people transforming the legal profession from the inside out and having authentic conversations with the trailblazers who are reimagining what's possible in the legal world. My name is Ronni Millard, founder of Tribe Marketing Consultancy and founder of the Wellbeing Edge, a performance and wellness consultancy, and a very passionate connector of people, of ideas in the legal world. So today I'm delighted to be joined by none other than David Langdon, who is the founder of Blind Spot Solutions. With decades of experience in the legal and professional services world, David brings sharp insight into the blind spots that hold organizations back from achieving true operational and cultural performance. David's work focuses on uncovering the unconscious patterns and unspoken challenges within legal teams, offering strategic solutions that transform both leadership and workplace well-being. So I can't tell you how excited I am to welcome David to People in Legal. It's such a pleasure to have us with you all. How are you today?
Good, thank you, Ronni. Thank you for having me on the podcast. That was quite the intro. I haven't been called a trailblazer before, but we'll go with that.
Wonderful. Well, look, I'm going to dive straight in. I've got a stack of questions to ask you. So if I may, first question off the bat is, you have had, I think it's fair to say, you've had such a diverse journey in legal tech, from CRM implementations to Europe and North America to strategic consulting across APAC. Tell us, David, what shifts have you seen in how law firms approach technology over the last 20 years?
So many changes to talk of, really. I mean, technology is moving at such a fast pace. It changes every day at the moment. So I think one of the biggest changes, certainly since I moved over here to Australia 20 years ago, is shift from sort of IT calling the shots. And they've just pick a system that somebody asked for, go out and find one, get a demo and install it. I think now technology is much more strategic in its procurement. People are looking to find how it fits into other areas of the business. It's not just ticking a box to get some software now. So that's one certain area. I think the user experience and the way workflows actually work has changed dramatically. I think workflows actually do flow now, whereas 20 years ago, a workflow meant that you'd have a developer build something, and if you didn't like it, you had to stick with it. A lot of things have changed. I mean, the user experience, again, was what you got was what you had to live with. Very much in the case that we had Windows-based machines, so everything was fixed in one place. Software vendors made their software, and if you didn't like what they did, you pretty much couldn't do anything with it. So all of that stuff definitely changed. Another big area that's changed is certainly data. I mean, back in the early days when I was in a law firm in London in the late 90s, I'm giving away my age now, it was very much a case of data was just a thing. Everyone wanted to collect the name and addresses so you could send out brochures to your clients, and then you had to have someone to manually fix that if the post office didn't deliver it. So I think data has become more of just a thing to more of an asset in the firm. I mean, people are using data in so many different ways now. I mean, we even have lakes, and we have all these things that people put data into now. So it's a very different world, and everyone's sort of leveraging information. People in the marketing department don't just want to know the names and addresses of people now. They want to know how much has a client spent in a particular practice area. And there's a lot more analytics going on with the data that's being stored. So I think people are actually starting to make use of it. There's quite a few things I've mentioned there, but I shall pause to let you ask any follow-up questions on that.
No, and I think, if I may, I know that when we had a conversation about this, previously, some time ago, you talked about how things have changed around the RFP process and that whole change. Can you talk to us a little bit about that and give the listeners a bit of an insight?
The beloved RFP. I don't think too many tech vendors like the RFP, but it is a means to an end a lot of the time. I think gone are the days where, I say gone are the days, some people still do it, where you're picking a solution based on functionality. And as a tech vendor in my previous roles, you get these spreadsheets of questions. There could be hundreds of rows, and they're just tick boxes for you to say that you can offer that particular functionality. It doesn't really give the vendor an opportunity to have a consultative conversation, to have a strategic conversation about how the software might benefit the firm, what they're trying to achieve. So I definitely found that there has been a shift in that, although some people still do that. I was actually talking to a CEO a few months back, and he is a CEO of pretty much a startup legal tech company over in the US. And when I had a chat with him, he said, we don't do RFPs. If someone sends us one, we politely decline to submit it. And when I asked him why that was, he said, well, it seems to be just a feature checklist. It's a feature competition. And all we're doing is we don't have 100 features in our solution. So if we're comparing ourselves to another piece of software that has 100 features, on paper, it looks like that solution has more functionality. Whereas in actual fact, he was saying that his solution focuses on perhaps 10 features that, I guess in hindsight, the people who chose the other one, they ended up being the only features that they used in that other system anyway, when you go back and interview them a couple of years later. So he was very much against the idea of that sort of ticking a box on a spreadsheet to say you have a feature, particularly if I'm talking about like a CRM solution. If someone wants a new CRM solution, don't put a question on the spreadsheet that says, do you allow contacts to be stored? It's pretty obvious that it's going to. You don't really have much choice. And if it doesn't do that, then you're probably not in the right business. So I think there's a lot of, I guess a lot of this comes back, I think, to probably the on-premise days when software was very much fixed and based around functionality, and vendors were sort of putting new functions and features in, and if you were one step ahead of the game, you did quite well. But I think that has changed a lot in modern times with the way that software's evolved over the years.
And it's a really interesting point. And I guess in terms of the technological shift, but what you're talking about also is the shift in behaviors and decision making. In, like you said, it's asking the right questions, but knowing what questions to ask and what criteria suits each person or company individually.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell me, David, just in terms of your moving into a nice segue about your book. So you have published a book called Beyond the Features, which helps firms navigate tech selection. What's the one biggest mistake you see firms making when evaluating legal tech?
I think picking one mistake is going to be the hard part here. There's been a lot over the 30 years in legal tech that I've come across. And I think a combination of all those things really sparked me to want to write the book. I mean, it's called Beyond the Features because probably the number one problem is that people don't see beyond those features. It goes back to that CEO who refused to do an RFP and based on features. I think too often firms focus on what's shiny, what's new, what looks great, without really thinking about how it fits together, really understanding, even going back even further than that, and what do we actually need to achieve? What is the end goal? And what are we going to have to do to get there? So I think picking the software is just one small piece of the entire legal tech transformation journey. I think too often that becomes the focus, choosing the software. Again, it is the smallest piece, but it's also going to be the most instrumental piece if you get that part wrong. And in writing the book, I just wanted to create a sort of a strategic pathway, if you like, for helping firms to understand sort of what you need to think about, having relationships with vendors, understanding what they can do, looking at the bigger picture as well. I mean, don't just buy a CRM system because you want a marketing tool. You need to buy something that's going to be able to integrate with other solutions and fit within your legal tech stack. So it's not just a case of siloing yourself for the marketing department and then the finance team does their thing and then the property department has its own conveyancing tools. So there's a lot of overlap. And I think it's just having a clearer picture of how all that fits together. And so stepping back a little bit, really, and making sure you're picking solutions that work together, can grow with the firm and see you well for the future.
And so who would you say would be the key audience that the book is aimed at?
Anyone making strategic decisions in law firms, whether it be managing partners, knowledge managers, CIOs, C-suite, anyone engaged in project delivery, I guess the business of law, if you like, within the law firms. It's just really a sort of a practical guide on sort of different ideas and experiences that I've had. There's a few funny stories along the way in there too. There's plenty of those adored.
Bit of the British humour creeping in.
Yeah, a little bit.
So a book of empowerment, sort of hand-holding around certain decision making, but really the key takeaway is how to be more or better equipped to make the right decisions at the right time around tech.
Yeah, I think so. I don't expect people to read it from page 1 to the end. It is a book that you can dip in and out of. If you're starting your legal tech journey, whether you're in the middle of doing it, whether you're trying to fix something that went wrong, there's a chapter in there that sort of covers a lot of those topics. And hopefully there's some insights in there that people find useful. It actually was good for me to write the book. It sort of cleared my brain a little bit, putting it all down on paper, helped me unravel the last 30 years.
Amazing. Well, thank you for the share. So that moves me nicely into my next question. So you've spoken quite openly about your own vision impairment, which you're living with. Could you tell the listeners a little bit more about that and how it's actually shaped your own perspective when it comes to inclusion and accessibility, specifically in legal workplaces and tech design?
Yeah, certainly. I have what is called Stargardt's disease. It is a central vision loss. People would probably more recognize macular degeneration as a term. It's probably one of the most common forms of sight loss globally, but it's usually with older people. So over time, my central vision deteriorates. So my ability to recognize faces, text, read signs, read the buttons on lifts when I'm going to client buildings, that type of thing. Work out who's talking in a meeting room. So that those things become quite a challenge. So that's really been just how my life has just evolved. I've kind of lived with it. And it's only when I think back, perhaps if I go back 10 years or 20 years or 30 years, I can sort of recognize that it has deteriorated. On a day-to-day basis, I don't really notice it. Perhaps know that I'm zooming in my screen a little bit further than I perhaps was, that type of thing. But when I started my career, I really insisted to myself more than anything that I wanted to make sure I had as normal career as possible. And by normal, I don't mean to be a fighter pilot, because that really wasn't going to happen with bad eyesight. Just to go into a career that I could just grow into and be part of. I didn't want to have to be sub-labeled as someone with a disability and that type of thing. So I was very much in the early days able to hide it. Didn't really need to make people aware of it. I had some low vision accessibility technology, which was very limited back then. Didn't really need a lot of it. Could get about, could navigate, could pretty much read the top couple of lines on the eye chart, so I could fake it till you make it, I think they say. But as I've sort of evolved and sort of got more of an understanding of, I guess, what my capabilities are and what they're not, I've just decided to embrace it, and it's part of me now. And hence I've included blind spot in my company name. Going back to the condition I've got, it is essentially a degradation of the blind spot that we all have. And I think the best way to explain it is like an egg yolk. We all have that blind spot in our vision. Mine's just breaking up and spreading out a little bit over time, is gradually getting a bit fuzzier, and the brain can't patch in the gaps anymore. It has its challenges. It has, I guess, steered me down a path when it comes to technology. Luckily for me, I've followed a career that has been in technology, because technology is what's allowed me to do what I'm doing. As I sit here talking to you now over Zoom, I have a 32-inch monitor sitting about a foot in front of my face. So I can see relatively well looking at the screen. I've got magnification software. The technology that's around now has just become really easy to help me navigate my job, essentially. And I think that just with that need, it's made me, I guess, focus more on that as part of what I do as well. So when I'm training people or I'm explaining things to people, I find myself a lot more descriptive, telling people where things are on the screen as opposed to just telling them to press the OK button. So, okay, well, where is that? So just being a little bit more descriptive, being a bit more helpful. Yeah. I think that helps everybody. It doesn't matter whether you can see, whether you can't hear, whether you've got any kind of, neurodivergent issues that are quite common these days. Everyone needs to be able to use the software. And I think that's what's helped me steer my interests and how I tend to do things a little bit differently when I'm consulting and talking to firms throughout my career.
Thank you so much for the share and the education on what you're living with, and how I love how you said how you've embraced it and it's part of you, and you've worked with it and still obviously doing such a great job and contributing so well to the legal industry. It sounds like there's still huge opportunity to be leveraged when it comes to accessibility and inclusion in the legal tech space. How much opportunity do you think there is? I mean, we've come so far. but it sounds like there's a lot more to be leveraged.
So much more to be leveraged. I think we're only really scratching the surface on the world of accessibility. I think the whole topic of sort of diversity and inclusion is very popular. It's in fashion at the moment. Most corporations are embracing it. I do find that sometimes, without opening the can of worms around that topic, is that the focus tends to be around sort of religion and sexuality when it comes to inclusion, as opposed to the ability to do your job. So disability tends to get sort of palmed off to the side a little bit. When most people think about accessibility and inclusion, they tend to think of disability. So when you think of accessibility, people tend to go, oh yeah, it's about wheelchair access. It's about the braille on the buttons in the lift when you go to a building, those sorts of things, or whether it's lighting standards in certain rooms, or whether you have acoustics in a particular room so people are hard of hearing, and those sort of basic things. But I don't think accessibility needs to be just for people with a disability. I think accessibility is for everybody. And to me, inclusion is everybody. We all need to be able to do certain things. The tools that are available now, if you look at your iPhone, the built-in accessibility features there, so many of those features are used by people with perfect eyesight or perfect hearing, but they're just extra tools that allow you to accommodate and make things a little bit easier to navigate the world. So I think we're really just starting. And I think the fact that mainstream tech has come on board with focusing and pushing so much accessibility is making it much easier to adapt. Back in the early 2000s, accessibility and assistive technology was really, really expensive, clunky bits of equipment. So I'd have to pay $600 or $700 for a piece of software to magnify my screen, whereas now it's built into my Mac. Or if I wanted to be able to go to a lecture when I was at university, I'd have to get a really expensive CCTV camera set up that looked really weird. I did have a head-mounted thing at one point that had a camera on it. It was quite bizarre, but it allowed me to zoom in and see across the room and watch something. But now, I was just watching something that I think Apple added some new accessibility features that are coming later this year. The ability to use your iPhone as the camera pointing at a screen in a lecture theatre or in a presentation or some kind of a conference that you're at, and have that come up on your screen. You can change the color contrast, zoom in, take pictures. So just having my MacBook and my iPhone in a meeting is going to allow me to do the things that I would previously have to spend $6,000 or $7,000 to carry around this clunky equipment. I think we are only touching the surface. So excited about where AR and AI is going, like augmented reality and AI combining. Really exciting for me. I'd love to be able to have a pair of glasses. I think it's coming soon, sort of almost there now, but just to be able to go into a conference and wear a regular pair of glasses and see that, Ronnie's walking towards you 3 or 4 meters away. Yeah. And just get that sort of perspective, interaction with the world to make life normal. But I think it's not just on a visual basis. The accessibility is for everybody. Again, coming back to that fact that inclusion is for everybody, not just for people with a disability.
Yeah, no, I love how you sort of the narrative on that. And I guess it's around inclusion and diversity and accessibility, all of it being like authentic and actually not being an afterthought, but being part of our new normal for everyone, as you said.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That moves me really nicely onto my next question around AI, actually, as you just touched upon it. So AI for you clearly has been quite a game changer. How do you see it transforming the legal practice, not just in terms of the features, but in terms of the way that lawyers and staff are actually working on a daily basis?
Yeah, it's just transformative at the moment. I don't think we can escape it. I think you have to just get on and enjoy the ride at the moment. I think first off, just to explain how sort of I'm embracing it, I really started using it on a daily basis when I first started dabbling with ChatGPT. It kept becoming a topic at all the conferences I was going to a few years ago. Everyone was talking about it, didn't really understand what it meant, didn't really stand for anything in my mind. So I went away and had a look at it. And one of my first experiences with it was I logged into the free version of ChatGPT and decided to help my daughter with an assignment. She needed to find out some information about Cleopatra, I think it was. So I just typed in some history stuff and it came back with this amazing response. And I just was blown away with how it's constructed the answer. Clearly I'd tell my daughter not to use that for her answer, but that just made me realize that this is actually going to be a great tool. And I've started using it now on a daily basis. To be fair, I think ChatGPT now it's like having a $30 a month personal assistant. It's something that's there at the side of my desktop every day, helping me to do research, helping me to bring information together. And one of the cool things about ChatGPT at the moment is just the natural language speaking. So it's actually a comfortable voice to listen to, not none of these synthetic sort of voices that you would have, like Stephen Hawking's, that type of voice that would have had over the years. So it's really easy to listen to now. So I put everything through it because I like the way it sounds, and it just talks to me, tells me what's going on. I can ask it simple questions. So I find it really helpful in my day to day, even down to putting the book together. And there was no way before AI that I could physically sit and read through my own notes, just from a visual perspective. But to be able to make notes, bullet points, and then put it into AI to make sure that it was consistent, to look for duplication across the entire book and to where I've repeated myself or where I haven't, and it just gave me a chapter sort of analysis on where I need to improve. So I could go back to it straight away and fine tune. So it just saves so much time. So I think if I now translate that into the legal world, I don't think it's something that we should be scared of. I don't think it's going to replace lawyers anytime soon. I think it's a bit like a superpower, really. It is that personal assistant. It's the ability to get things done a little bit quicker. Certainly when it comes to the legal industry, just things like e-discovery make such a difference now, having AI involved. You've seen all of those American TV law shows where they get a group of associates into a room for a month with box upon box of files, and they're going through trying to find that needle in a haystack to convict somebody. With AI now, what took a month now takes a few minutes. All that information can be scanned in. You can ask that AI tool a series of questions around what you're trying to find, how you want it to consider the data, and literally get answers in seconds. So it's transformative in that regard. I think it allows the lawyers to focus on adding true value rather than dealing with admin.
Absolutely. And I think, adding much more depth to what you were talking about around inclusion and diversity and accessibility. Great. I just wanted to take you back, David, to the different regions that you've worked across. So you've worked across Europe and North America and APAC. What cultural differences have you seen or noticed around them with regards to legal tech adoption?
So many, to be honest. I'm born and bred in the UK, so very familiar with the English way of doing things. But my journey through legal tech has seen me, as you've mentioned, I did implementations and consulting in sort of North America and Canada and across Europe, and then most recently into Asia Pacific, Australia, New Zealand. And I think legal technology is a constant, but there's not one single way of being able to, I guess, present it or implement it or talk about it in different regions. I mean, for example, when I've worked in the US, they a little bit more sort of gung-ho on just getting on with it, getting things done. They do love a good lengthy PowerPoint in the US, so they like to have slides and get information and feel that they've got value for money out of the presentation. And then they like to go into like literally 2 or 3 days worth of deep dives into software to make sure they've ticked every single box. So, and then budgets seem a little bit more free, I guess. So there's just it's interesting. When I worked there, I think I did an implementation of a CRM solution many years ago and got some feedback that they were quite surprised how much I knew about the whole solution. And I think in the US, they were very familiar and used to the fact that people had specialities. So you get several different people in to cover different aspects of the solution, go through different things. And I think that's certainly outside of the US, we see people definitely having a lot more of a general knowledge about a lot of things. And I think back to the UK and Europe, they're very structured, a little bit more considered, more it's that British reserve, if you like, but not so interested in too much of the fluff. They just want to get down to it. And I think even when I come over here to Australia now, take that even one step further, the Australians just want to cut to the chase. They want to know what the system can do. Is it going to do what they want it to do? How much is it going to cost? And can they get involved in putting it in there? Let's get on with it. That said, there's still long decision times into actually making that final decision, but I think it's a little bit more approachable here and a little bit more conversational of how things, a little bit more open, if you like. And you take that again, go to the Middle East. I've done a few projects over in the UAE, and very different culture in that it's very much service orientated. The law firms are all, I guess, they're looking to have the vendor do everything for them. They don't want to get their hands dirty. I actually had a booked-in session at a firm in Dubai many years ago. They knew I was coming. I was going to do some training for a CRM solution. And literally the morning I rocked up to do the training, the IT manager said, "Oh, okay, let's go off to the computer shop and buy the computers for the training room now." It was very much a just go with it as it happened sort of environment. But yeah, very, very different. So when you try and look across all those different geographies, you can't sell a software solution or present any kind of legal tech the same way in different countries, because people have different needs, wants, I guess, levels of attention spans, really. If anything, it's just completely different wherever you happen to be.
And different ways of doing business. I guess,
Yeah.
and it really resonated what you talked about, because being from Egyptian heritage and then being born in Egypt and then being raised in the UK and now living in Australia, the way that you story told those those behaviors and that sort of mindset was spot on. So love that you have all of those experiences to compare and obviously give you that depth and breadth of knowledge. That takes me nicely onto my next question around, you know, the bold move that you made from the UK to here around, you know, that 20-year mark. What drew you to here? Was there anything specifically that, you know, attracted you to being here in Australia?
From the warm weather and the sunshine. Although sitting here talking to you right now, it is freezing. I don't know whether I'm acclimatized over 20 years, but it's not particularly warm today. But no, I was working with Elite in the UK in their London office in the early 2000s. My grandmother lived over in Australia, over here near Brisbane. I decided to go and visit her for a holiday at the end of 2004 to surprise her for her 90th birthday. So came over here, had a great time. Christmas was actually warm by the pool as opposed to being cold, which was novel. That Northern Hemisphere Christmas. And I went back after that trip just feeling like, I could live in a place like this. It just, I don't know, it just resonated. Going back to London, a lot of my friends at the time were starting to move on. They were settling down, moving outside of London. So I kind of was in that sort of, I didn't quite know what to do. So I just sent an email to the lady who was running the APAC team that just been started up for Elite, and just explained that I'd been on holiday and just wondered whether there's anything happening. And within about 24 hours, I got an email back saying, "Yep, definitely there's a place for you. Don't unpack your bags." So I really didn't expect to come out here. I just thought, well, if it was in my head, I decided, well, if I didn't ask, I would never know. So I did. I didn't have any ties back in the UK. Within about 3 months of that email, I got on a plane and moved here. Complete transformation. Yes, single guy from London turns up in Australia, and within a few weeks of being here, I met my now wife through my cousin, and we have a child together, and she's about to head off to her formal. She's turning 18 in a few weeks. It's been a huge change for me personally. I think we've turned that now to thinking about how it's like to work here. It's relaxed here. It's living in London I think it's great to have had that experience. I don't think I could live there now, now that I'm living in a sort of a relatively sleepy town in southeast Queensland. But it's very much a network in Australia. Everyone knows each other. You literally just hop between a few major cities to do a lot of the business here, and everyone knows who everybody else is. There are, I guess, regular conferences where the same people, same faces that I've now seen over 20 years, apart from the fact that I don't see the faces, but that's just a technicality. But it's the same people. They come up to me and we just reminisce over the last 10, 15, 20 years of legal tech. So I find the Australian market very much a network, very friendly. I think the Australians just like to get things done and get sort of clocked off for the week and head to the beach, do a bit of surfing. The Brits perhaps were a little bit more formal and wanted to stay a little bit longer. But yeah, I found it a really great place to be. And I think one of the things that I find quite different is that Australia being where it is in the world, and just this big giant island, I think Australians have to be more independent. I think there's a certain, if you're in Europe, in the UK, you can rely on all the rest of Europe. You've got experiences from the US. There's a lot of more collaboration in those parts of the world. I think here you have to be quite self-sufficient. You have to be sort of a jack of all trades. And I think it's really helped me to understand like the whole ecosystem of legal tech as opposed to just a small part of it.
Yeah. And I totally agree with what you're saying. I think, you know, having been and worked in legal myself for, a couple of decades, layer upon layer of connectedness that you have with each other. And it just, for the most part, seems so genuine. And, there's so many crossovers. There's not many degrees of separation. But yeah, I've always enjoyed, like you say, the conferences where you just catch up with what feels like old mates and you just pick up where you left off.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that brings me on to my question around counsel that you might be able to give. So for somebody starting out in legal tech or even law, what advice would you give that person when it comes to, meaning and future proofing their career in this legal tech space?
Yeah, the first thing I'd say would be to strap yourself in and enjoy the journey. I mean, it is moving so fast at the moment, particularly over the last few years with the AI. Everybody's talking about it. If it's not AI, it's AML at the moment. So the topics of the day here in Australia, that's for sure. But I think anyone new starting in this industry just has to be curious. They have to stay abreast of what's going on in the broader tech space, as well as just the legal tech space. Perhaps as well understand the business of law, not just about the technology, but understand how law firms work. They are very different. They're a little bit slower perhaps than some of your corporates. That's not a bad thing sometimes, but it can be frustrating when you're trying to negotiate a legal tech contract and you have to go through the lawyers. They feel almost obliged that they have to negotiate quite hard with you. But yeah, it's an interesting environment, but I think there's so much scope. I think the way that AI is going, there are going to be so many more roles that we don't even know about in legal tech. And I think just, again, staying on top of what's current, what's happening, build relationships. As I mentioned here in Australia, there's a great network. So many people around that you can talk to and get help from. So I think it's a great time, great opportunity to get involved in the tech world. I mean, one of the great things, technology at the moment, is that technology is accelerating faster than my eyesight's deteriorating. So there's always going to be something that's coming that's going to help. So it's just, I think, just get on the ride and enjoy the journey.
And I read somewhere that apparently for kids that are sort of in their teenage years now, 60% of jobs that they'll be going into haven't even been created. They're non-existent at the moment. It's incredible.
Right. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's hard to think about it.
It is mind-boggling. Well, on that note, David, it's been such a pleasure talking to you, and I've really appreciated you being so candid and open. Where would any of our listeners, come to find you, to find out more or get in touch if they wanted to have a conversation with you about all things tech and legal? Yeah,
well, I'm regularly posting on LinkedIn, so annoying everybody on my network with regular posts on there, just of insights and bits and pieces, promoting the book at the moment. So, but just blindspot.solutions is my website. I've got a lot of my sort of articles and insights I post on there. You can book a free 30-minute consultation with me up on my website just to have a chat, to see where things are going. What I really want to try and do is just to be able to have those chats and help firms to make better decisions when it comes to legal tech. A lot of the time I've seen over the years, certainly when I've been trying to sell solutions into law firms, is that they don't really have the time or the expertise in-house to help them understand and put things together. So I sort of see myself as sort of the glue between the law firm and the tech vendors, and try and just keep things steering along nicely so that they can focus on their day jobs. So if people want to talk to me about that kind of thing, then I'm definitely open for conversations.
Amazing. Love the glue analogy. Everyone needs a bit of glue to keep things together. Love it. Well, thank you so much, David. It was a pleasure talking to you today, and I'm sure the listeners will have a wealth of little talking points and nuggets to go away with, and come back to you if they want a further conversation. So thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, no problem at all. Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be on the podcast.